into this video, can we just take 2 seconds to appreciate the lovely poppy products that I've been able to purchase from the Royal British Legion and their online poppy shop, which if you've not been on it, it's fantastic. Basically anything that you can put a poppy on, they've created it. It's fab. They have so many things, but I will talk about the poppy appeal and the Royal British Legion a little bit later in this video. But I just thought I'd show you some of the lovely things that you can get, and 100% of the profits goes to support and helps to rehabilitate British servicemen and women and all the fantastic work that the Royal British Legion does to do that, which I will go into later on in this video. I decided to get the Royal British Legion wristband because I love a wristband, and this is the child's one actually because they ran out of the adult one, and seeing as my wrists are the only thin thing about me at the moment, I was quite lucky and they fit, so that was good. I also got these super cute poppy baubles, so they're just like a black bauble with a rubber poppy on the front, which is great, which means I can wear them outside when I play the last post, and even if it's raining they're not going to get ruined. But I just thought they were a really super cute way to add a poppy. And I also got the new pin badge, which is lovely. It's a lovely little enamel and metal pin badge, which is really pretty. And they're relatively inexpensive, so I know everybody's a bit strapped for cash, but if you're still looking to donate, and I will leave a link down below to the poppy shop from the Royal British Legion, and again I will talk about them a bit more later on in this video. However, as you can tell from the title of this video, there's one thing particularly that I'm going to focus on today, or rather maybe two things I'm going to focus on today. For me, Remembrance Sunday is the most important date in the banding calendar. You can forget your area, you can forget your national finals, you can forget brass in concert, you can forget the Royal Albert Hall. For me, Remembrance Sunday is the most important day. It's one of the few times of year where everybody wants a brass band. They are featured everywhere. You can't go anywhere without seeing or hearing a brass band or a bugler or a cornet player. I love it, it's brilliant. I feel lucky that we have a physical talent and skill that we can use to commemorate the lives of those who fell in one of the most beautiful ways possible, which is through music. It's just, I love it. However, with most things this year, this blooming virus has got in the way and most remembrance services have been cancelled. For me, that's really sad because it is a really important time of the year, and with everything that's going on, I think Remembrance Sunday is the one thing that can give us a bit of perspective that even though, yes, life is not great at the moment and having to stay inside and not socialise is not fun, but in the grand terms of things, the government are asking you to stay at home and watch Netflix, not go over the top and throw yourself into machine gun fire. I think in the grand scheme of things, we got the better end of the deal. So with that being said, I thought it would be interesting to go on an adventure, a virtual adventure, because that's the only thing we're allowed to do at the moment, into the history of the last post and reveille. It's a simple bugle call, we hear it every year, but how did it go from a bugle call that literally just signified the time of day to something that's become synonymous with remembrance services and memorials and anniversaries of war events, and something that has become such a big part of our culture, really. I hope you find it interesting and a little bit educational, and hopefully it will maybe bring a bit more meaning the next time that you get to play the last post and reveille. So feel free to pause this video, go and grab yourself a brew, maybe some biscuits, make sure that you've got your poppy on, and we will jump into the story of the last post and reveille. So, what wars do we tend to associate with the last post? Probably the first and second, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that. Remembrance services kind of became a big thing after the First and Second World Wars just because of the sheer loss of life and the loss of civilian life, which was a massive thing. Last post and reveille have actually been around for hundreds of years. It was first published in around the late 1700s apparently. So the way that the last post and the reveille were used were kind of like an alarm clock, because in the trenches or in the battlefields and in the camps, people didn't tend to have wristwatches or, a mobile phone that could tell them what time it was. So they had a series of bugle calls that signified what time of day it was and also what was expected of them in that time of day, whether it was to go to bed or to get up or to go out on parade or to do some kind of duty. Every single kind of time or event had a bugle call, so everybody in the camp knew precisely what was expected of them and knew what they needed to do. The reveille was played first thing in the morning to tell the soldiers, get out of bed. Up you get, off we go. I was in the First World War and I was sleeping in a very cold, dark trench. I imagine I didn't sleep very well, and I'm not a morning person anyway. If someone had played the reveille down my ear hole first thing in the morning, I think there would have been a case of friendly fire. So, of an evening, after all the fighting had been done, a bugle call called the first post would be played. And this basically told the camp that the on-duty officer was going around the camp or the trench or wherever it was to basically survey the area, make sure that the sentry posts were manned, that someone was on guard, that everything was in order and it's where it should be, and to basically let you know that if you're not in your bunks or your billets or where you should be at night time to go to sleep, to get there pretty sharpish because it's time for bed. It also sort of later on, if anybody was in sort of the surrounding villages, in the pubs or brothels or where they shouldn't be, it was kind of their last warning to say, look, you need to get to bed, because if the officer finds out that you're not in bed, you're going to be in trouble. So this was played when the officer got to the first sentry post, so the first post. And the officer would go round and then he'd get to the last sentry post, and this is when the last post was played, which was basically their final warning of saying, look, everything's safe, everything's fine, we can go to bed, everything is where it should be. And again, if you're not where you should be, get to where you should be. So it was kind of the last call really of the day to say, you need to go to bed. It was only sort of in the 1850s, when armies were being posted abroad more and more often, that the last post and reveille became associated with funerals and mourning. It basically came out of necessity really. And sort of the bandspeople and the bandmasters tended to be civilians, so they weren't really obligated to be posted abroad. So the regiments didn't have any kind of musicians apart from the buglers, obviously, because they needed them to tell them the time of day. So with necessity being the mother of invention, when music was needed to kind of carry the fallen soldiers to the final resting place, the last post started to be used as a sort of symbolism almost, that it was their final resting place. They were going to bed, it was the last post of their life, if you like. After a few minutes of sort of reflection and silent prayer, the bugle would then play the reveille, and the symbolism of this is absolutely beautiful, and now I know this, it's just going to mean so much more to me when I play it. The reveille kind of symbolised them waking up or rebirth into their new eternal life. Fast forward a few decades, in 1914, not only was the last post and reveille used in military ceremonies and military funerals, it was also used in civilian funerals as well. So it was also used in civilian ceremonies, one of the most famous being the bandmaster of the Titanic, who was called Wallace Hartley, who did have the last post and reveille played at his funeral. Nowadays it's not just used for Remembrance Sunday, it's used for a variety of different military events and anniversaries, such as Anzac Day and VE Day and so many more anniversaries to do with the war. Also, anybody can have it played at their funeral, whether they are military personnel or not military personnel. You can request to have the last post. If you know somebody who plays the cornet or plays a bugle, you can request to have the last post played at your funeral, whereas in centuries gone by it was only reserved for military people. Another big thing that's changed the last post is that it's played very, very differently nowadays to how it would have originally been played when it was just a bugle call to send soldiers to where they needed to be. Originally, it probably would have taken about 45 seconds to get through the last post. It was played quite quickly because it was essentially an alarm. Because nowadays, obviously, it's more solemn, it's played with more expression, and it usually takes around 75 seconds to get through the last post nowadays. Also, rather than just being played on a bugle, which is what it was originally written for, I've heard it played on trumpets, I've heard it played on cornets, I've heard it played on a violin, which was surprisingly wonderful. So that's it for the story of the last post and reveille. Now I'm going to introduce a new segment into my videos. I did say at the beginning of this video that I was going to talk about the Royal British Legion, and this is where it all kind of falls into place. So this is an idea that I've taken from one of my favourite YouTubers called Tim Tracker, who, if you like all things Disney, go and follow him, he's fantastic. But obviously this year has affected so many people, especially charitable organisations who live off donations and fundraising, and with all the lockdowns and everything that's been going on, it's been really difficult for them. So this is a segment that I'm going to call Shine a Spotlight, where I'm going to shine a spotlight on a charity or an organisation that could do with a little bit of help. So if you're looking to do your good deed for the day, hopefully this will inspire you, and hopefully it will just raise a bit of awareness for some organisations that could do with your help, or an organisation that might help you and that you've never heard about. So hopefully it'll be a bit helpful. So obviously, with it being Remembrance Sunday, the first charitable organisation that I'm going to pick is the Royal British Legion. The Royal British Legion is the country's largest military charity with over 235,000 members and 110,000 volunteers. It supports members of the armed forces and their families from the first day of service right up until after they've finished and beyond, and it provides opportunities to help with rehabilitation, to help mental health. If you buy a poppy or a poppy product, 100% of the profits made from things like poppy baubles, paper poppies, poppy badges, anything that you can buy from the poppy shop goes to the Royal British Legion and the projects that they do. So that's it for now for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. Make sure you're wearing your poppies. If you've not already got one, make sure you're wearing one. And on Sunday or Wednesday next week, if you do have an instrument and you can safely perform the last post on your doorstep, in your garden, in your bedroom with the window open, anywhere where it's safe and legal to do so, please play the last post. I've seen quite a few posts and comments on Facebook of people wanting to play the last post but being too scared of making a mistake or not playing it properly and feeling that it's inappropriate if they don't play it perfectly. There are professional buglers that don't get it right. Everybody has split the last post at some point. The last post, for me, if you make a mistake in it, it doesn't matter. It's the reason why you're playing it that matters. But that's all for me for now. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you next time.